Before you became an entrepreneur, what was your life like?
I really hit this sort of like wall where I was like, okay, I don't know like what to do next other than working 50 hours a week and dying of stress.
Was there a specific moment that happened that made you decide this is not going to be what I continue doing?
I kept seeing all these contractors I worked with make way more money than me and be like, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. Your biggest thing is your time and your freedom. If you can craft a life that aligns with your value, aligns with your personal mission, and gives you time and freedom, like that is a successful life. And that is the hardest thing to do.
If you had to choose between happiness or success, what would you choose?
If we were like living paycheck to paycheck, I would have to choose success, but happiness for sure.
Hello, Wayfinders, and welcome back to 101 Ways Out. I'm your host, Vanessa Jupi, and today I'm excited to introduce you to Anna Duin. She is a marketing maverick, and she has so many lessons to share. What I especially love about this interview is that there are so many tangible things that you can take away from her experience. I've learned so much from her, and even going through the process of listening to the interviews again, I've made so many notes that Anna shared that I think are so helpful, that I think are going to help you a ton, and that have made it also into my 30-day program because they're that valuable. So listen closely. Don't be afraid to get a notepad out and take notes of your own. I cannot wait to find out what you found valuable in this. So please share your comments with me, like, subscribe, and share with more of your friends. And stick around to the end because I'm going to give you a quick update on what Anna is up to nowadays. All right. So Anna, just start by telling me who you are and where you are in your life at this moment in time.
Hi, I'm Anna Duin. I am an entrepreneur, a marketer, somehow a business owner now, which still blows my mind. And I am the mother of two little wild hellions.
How old are your kiddos?
They are 3 and almost 6. And let me tell you, we are counting down the days into the 6th birthday. We're inviting everyone we've ever met to the 6th birthday. It is very exciting.
Awesome. Okay. So before you became an entrepreneur, what was your life like?
So I've been in marketing for 11 years, which is its own kind of funny story because I went to school for psychology and the original plan was to be like a therapist. And then in my senior year, I was like, oh, I have like no patience to sit and listen. I'm extremely bossy and opinionated. I don't think therapy is the right gig for me. And then on a whim, I started taking entrepreneurship classes, which I totally fell in love with. So then I ended up at these like crazy startups that like went bankrupt in like 6 months, and then bigger startups that didn't go bankrupt but wanted you to do like 3 jobs for the price of one and all this. So I think I've worked at 5 now. I lost track. And then just over a year ago, I really hit this sort of like wall where I was like, okay, I don't want to work like 50 hours a week. I want to keep growing in my career. I had stalled out at the individual contributor level, and I don't know like what to do next other than working 50 hours a week and dying of stress, or just like keep working as startups doing 3 jobs for the price of one, or just like not ever grow. So I had this like heart to heart with a recruiter, like, oh, I don't know. I was like, I guess I have to build my own thing now. She's like, yeah, I think so. I was like, okay, I guess we're building a thing now.
Was the recruiter contacting you for a specific job, or were you looking for something?
Oh no, I was like hounding her. I was like, it's part like, do you know of anyone hiring? Part like, I am having a life crisis. Can you talk me through it? And they're like, okay. So she was super, super nice. And I just sort of had this like aha moment where I was talking to her. I was like, I really don't think there's like another good option for me right now. Because in 3 of my jobs, I had negotiated working like a 30-ish hour work week, which was awesome. Super grateful I was able to do that. But it also sort of like pigeonholed me into this spot where I wasn't like really moving up anywhere. I didn't have capacity to move up anywhere, but I was still like given the responsibility and pressure of people like higher up without like that actual like salary. So like this sucks, and I've like painted myself into a corner, but I also don't want to like never see my children. So like, what is this path going to be? And I kept seeing all these contractors I worked with make way more money than me and be like, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it too.
Yeah. Were the contractors also in marketing or different areas?
Mostly. I hired one where it's like all they did was like Salesforce consulting, or all they did was like email, or all they did. I was like, this seems like nice. And I talked to one of them and I was like, what's your favorite part about all this? She's like, honestly, it's that like I can actually work and not spend my entire day in meetings and my entire day jumping through hoops, and then try to actually get some work done with like the last like 2 hours of my day. I was like, holy cow, I feel this like so hard. She's like, I get to actually work and make more than I used to do and like not do all the corporate like bullshit just because I'm a salaried employee. I was like, that sounds really nice.
I agree. Having spent most of my life in meetings, I can totally agree with that feeling. And then you're
Yeah.
like up late working all hours trying to figure out how to actually move things forward. And especially as a mom, you're not able to see your kids. Did you approach work differently after you had your babies?
I was very much like, how do I capitalize on their awake hours? Because I think the inherent like problem of the current structures, A, doesn't follow the school schedule. Can we talk about the fact that like the workday is not matched to our kids' school schedule at all? And how like insane that is when like more than 50% of like households have two working adults. And like that's just insane. That's a problem, period. And it meant I was getting my kid at like the grumpiest times because it was either like the frantic, like everybody ran out the door. I'm going to try to like pump and nurse this baby and like pack lunches and like bottles and like all of that. Or it was like we have an hour and a half before bedtime. It just doesn't work. I would much rather have taken like 3 to like 8 p.m. gap and then worked like 8 to 11 or whatever. And like actually been able to see my kids when they were like happy and awake and actually had like a minute to put dinner together and not just like this insane frantic thing that was turning me into like a very grumpy monster all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. The afternoons with kids are not the greatest. What is different for you now?
I think the main thing is that people hire me for like transformation. Like, we want you to achieve this. We don't need you to be like in 100 meetings, butts in seat these particular hours, like a day. And there's just like, I can actually say no. When you are in a salaried employee, you can basically never say no. You can try to push back. You can try to set like a boundary. You can tell people you're overworked and overwhelmed. And in a really great like company and a great boss, they like might hear you. They might try to support you, but even they can usually do so much. Now, if I really dislike a client or dislike a project, it's like, this isn't like a good fit for me. I'm going to go do something else. And that has had me operate with such a higher level of like self-efficacy and like I have the power to build my life. I feel like I'm operating in a very different part of my brain, like out of fight and flight and just like, what round of layoffs is going to happen? What is my demanding boss going to ask for next? What is this thing that I'm going to be like, handed that I didn't sign up for? Versus what would I like to learn? What would I like to grow in? What would I like to do for these clients? And I have all these juicy ideas and I can actually pitch it to them and we can do it.
That sounds amazing. Was there a specific moment that happened in your corporate career that made you decide this is not going to be what I continue doing?
Yeah, it was when my job description kept being switched every few months and I felt like I could never get traction in what I was like previously doing before it was like, actually, we're going to have you do this whole other thing. So like I was kind of just spinning in circles and then being told that I wasn't like doing a good job of that.
So walk me through that. How long were you at that company?
I was there for a couple of years.
What did it start out as and how did it keep shifting? What did you start doing and then what did they change it to, et cetera?
It was all within marketing, but totally different specializations, functions. And I was very honest. I was like, I have no background. They're like, yeah, you'll like figure it out. So very much like a vibe of like to do jobs for the price of one or take on something without a lot of support and just like figure it out. And then you're like, oh, this isn't like working. They're like, man, you should have like figured it out harder. And you're like, I told you this was like not ideal. Like that whole thing, that toxic culture of like, we want you to do everything, but we're not going to support you. And then you're going to like blame you, like just like that whole thing. And that for me was like, okay, this is not going to work. So then I was like, okay, am I either leaving to take another like position where I'm trying to be salaried and negotiating this flexible work week thing, which is already difficult, and doing it remote, which nobody wants to do anymore, which is already difficult? Or am I just going to actually take this leap and try to build something that's myself and my own, which I've been talking about trying to do for years? So I added like a few meltdowns with my husband. Like, okay, like what are we going to do? I was like, I think it's just time for you to try it. And if it doesn't work after like a year, it doesn't work. But at least like you will have crossed this off your bucket list. So then I started going to like coffee with all these people who were doing it and just like, okay, how did you do it? How long did you do it? How long until you started making money doing it? How stable is it? Where do you get your leads from? And that was honestly the smartest thing I did because I think it helped set very realistic expectations for like what the process would look like. And basically they all told me the first year is really hard, the first year is really slow, and then it starts to like take off from there. It's like, okay. So when I meet other people who are a little bit more optimistic, I'm like, oof, this year one is hard. At least that's what it's been for me. But it seems like it gets better and easier.
Okay, that's amazing. So let's start with the conversations with the husband. Was he surprised at all? It sounds like this is something you've been thinking about for a long time. Was he surprised at all when you finally decided to go all in, and how did the conversations with him go?
He is incredibly supportive. And I also want to caveat that this comes from a place of wild privilege. Like, this would not have even been a conversation for me had we been living paycheck to paycheck, had my husband not be highly employable in a stable job. We come from that privilege. So I want to like caveat that. If I was a single mother living paycheck to paycheck, this would not even have been like a thing. The privilege part was like huge. But he is incredibly supportive. He is very much like the stable one, like in the family. And he saw how miserable I was. I mean, people I barely knew could see how miserable I was. It was one of those jobs I should have quit about 6 months earlier than I did. So nobody was particularly surprised. And I think because I had been talking about it for so long, he was like, yeah, do it, like try it. And he has also had a much more like, we'll try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll do something else. Very like stable, realistic perspective versus me who has all this like imposter syndrome and anxiety. One thing I wish I would have known before I started all this is that if you already struggle with anxiety, imposter syndrome, any of that, this will bring it up. It's like speed dating and online dating, but like also tied to your income. So that is like a whole other weird level of like feelings and stuff. And just like I told somebody the other day, I was prepared for the financial instability. I was not prepared for the emotional instability. And just like that it will be intensive. Like, I'm very glad I didn't do this when my kids were babies. I couldn't have like handled it then. I toyed with it then. I would have been like a hot mess if I had tried to do it then. So I think just that it can be emotionally like very intensive, and it's very important to connect with like people who are either other like founders ideally, or counselors, therapists, coaches, anybody who can just help you productively process your feelings and kind of go, okay, this is like a reasonable concern, or this is just like a spiral. Like, that is one thing I wish I would have done. And I like spiral, and I'm like, but then it'll be like terrible and I'll never be employable again. He's like, how did we get from we'll try you freelancing for 6 months to a year to you'll never be like employable again?
Yeah, I can understand exactly where you're coming from. I think our husbands sound very similar, by the way.
Nice. We'll set up a husband play date.
We should. Okay, so let's go back to your husband's supportive. You decide to do this. You're meeting with all these people to understand how they got their businesses off the ground. What are the key takeaways that you learned and tried, and what kind of worked for you and what didn't?
Worst thing I did was being non-referable. And what I mean by that is being really vague. Like, I do marketing. Nobody has any idea what to send your way. If they have a friend being like, I need more leads, I need to overhaul email, like they might remember, oh, I think she does marketing and she does something, but it's so vague. You will like not stick in people's minds. So it took me a long time to realize like I needed to give people very specific examples of what I did, and even like fellow freelancers going like, hey, I love you, but I have no idea what to send you. It's like, fair enough. Then I was like, okay, I do lead gen, I do email marketing, I do HubSpot, and I started name dropping these very specific things. They're like, oh, actually, I know of like 3 people who might be interested. And I was like, my mind was kind of blown by that, honestly. I was like, okay, so if I give it to you broad, you can't think of anything. But if I get really specific, they're like, oh yeah, this is such and such. So that was like one of the smarter things I done. And I connected with an incredible group of local women. I don't think you're in it yet, and you need to be. It's called the Foundership. And it is all about like women founders and entrepreneurs like meeting together, collaborating, brainstorming. And that has been the smartest thing I've done in the last year for sure. Meeting with those women, following up, having coffee, getting to a place of trust where I can be like, hey, can you look at like my pricing guide and tell me if it's crazy? Can you look at my contract and tell me what clauses I'm missing? Can you look at like this and tell me what's not working? And it also gave me just people to ask like what's working for getting leads. And most of them are getting leads from word of mouth, referral, or something very specific. Like they do public speaking and that gets them leads, or they collaborate with agencies and then the agencies know of people to send their way, or they are working with a colleague who's really well established and then they send them people their way. So I have yet to find any sort of like easy magic bullet, but like, again, finding a list of people I can be like, hey, have you ever used Upwork and did it work for you? And then be like, oh, actually the algorithm just prioritizes people with lots of reviews. Try this one instead. I was like, great. Well, that just saved me a week of effort of my life in this 2-second like LinkedIn exchange that we had.
That's fantastic. Yeah, having that actionable advice is so powerful. And I love what you said about taking it from this broad, I do marketing, to these very specific things that you can offer. It clicks, right? It's like, oh, HubSpot. I use HubSpot. I cannot figure HubSpot out for the life of me. Please come help me.
Yeah. Be
Yes.
specific. Even if you feel like you're painting yourself into a corner, you could always tell people, yes, I also do that, or I also do that. But if they do not have something to latch onto, they will not remember you or think of you or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So where you were before, we're going to wrap up with some of the tangible stuff about transitioning to your own business. So you said it just over a year. Is it?
Yeah. Almost a year. Yeah.
Almost a year. Okay. And the first year is the hardest. Have you noticed traction? How has that been? How have your sales gone?
They're getting a lot bigger now in a few different ways. I made a couple of essential pivots. I realized that chasing teeny tiny businesses with no budget who wanted to nickel and dime every project to death was a total waste of time. Even though they were lovely, they didn't have money. They wanted to get hours of free consulting for a couple $100 a project. They were lovely people, but it was not a good use of time. Same with even networking with those groups. Some great local networking groups, but they were wildly here's a room full of people, have coffee. And you're like, this took half of my workday and this makes no sense for me to do. So that for sure. But once I started getting connected with people who were really established, who were working with bigger businesses on bigger projects, be it with agencies or big B2B businesses who already had a thing and budget, and they were just looking to find a person to help with the thing. We already know we need email. We already know we need HubSpot support. Just help us find the right person. Those calls were crazy. I closed one project and a referral to a 15-minute introduction thing to here's my contract to I started work that afternoon. That life cycle was insane. I mean, the referral part is huge, but finding people who were just the right audience who actually had budget and were ready to go versus whining and dining tiny businesses trying to convince them they needed marketing, totally different. Which now that I say it sounds so obvious. It's why did I even lead with this idea?
Well, it takes time to figure out your product market fit. So
yes,
you did,
it does.
Which is
yes,
amazing.
It does.
Fantastic. Okay, let's go back to Anna as a young kid. Tell me about what your upbringing was like and what your parents were like.
We were a unique family. My parents were missionaries. I was born in Stockholm, Sweden. So we traveled like crazy when I was growing up. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, they were entrepreneurs and alternate lifestyle people in so many ways. That was a unique growing experience because it was full of culture, it was full of travel, and it was very much not people working in a set 9 to 5. So now that I look back, I'm like, oh, they taught me how to do this. What I really appreciate about my growing up experience is my mom was always, and we were homeschooled. We were just alternate all across the board. And she was always saying to me, your biggest thing is your time and your freedom. If you can craft a life that aligns with your value, aligns with your personal mission and meeting, and gives you time and freedom, that is a successful life. And that is the hardest thing to do. So she really instilled that in me from a young age, that there are a lot fewer rules than we think they are, and that we don't have to just do the thing, go to college, go to this school, the way that we think we're supposed to. And she was also just my wildest believer and advocate. She's been telling me to start my own business for 5 years. So I think she really helped push me in that direction.
Oh my God, that's so cool. What an interesting life. Well, you were born in Sweden, but did you grow up in Kansas City area, or where did you grow up?
Mostly. We moved to the state. We traveled for a couple of years, sort of here for a few months, there for a few months. But we moved to the States permanently when I was 8. So I've lived in the Kansas City area pretty much since then. So I consider myself from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, very cool. So you mentioned your parents were missionaries. What did they do after moving back to Kansas City?
They pivoted, interestingly enough, and became counselors. So it's kind of funny. I was supposed to be I was supposed to be a counselor and got my degree in psychology. They were missionaries for a long time, but then they pivoted to pastoral counseling and specialized counseling and all of that. So it's kind of crazy. And even some of my clients recently had been therapists. So it's just sort of funny how it all circles back around. They do a little bit of everything, but still my dad has always had robust side hustles. He did electrical engineering school to learn how to make money, just would learn how to do these things to make extra money when we were low. So again, I think if you just sort of see it done and then you can start to imagine these possibilities for yourself. It's oh, well, if they've figured out a path for making it happen, maybe I can too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said about your mom's view for your life and what she tried to instill in you, which is one of the questions I had, which was the kind of expectations your parents had for you growing up.
I think they expected me to be a very intentional person, like very values driven. Like, what do I believe? What do I care about? Why? And does my life reflect that? Like, my mom, she's such a good feminist. She was never like, oh, you have to wear makeup or you have to look a certain way. Like, none of that. She was very much like, does it matter? Is it meaningful for you? Does it align with your faith? Does it align with your values? And so I think it's just taught me to look at decisions and go like, why do I care about this? What does success look like to me here? And when I had my kids, I decided that I was willing to trade success and income and status career development wise if it meant that I could be a more present and less stressed out like parent. That was something I decided like early on was like, okay, am I really just trying to get CMO on my title? You like, no, like, am I really just trying to be like somebody who still has like work as part of her own life and her own thing? Because I would go bananas if I did nothing else. Like if I just was a mom, I would go bananas. But like where is like that medium road?
I love that. So it's so interesting to me, the homeschooling aspect of your life and the fact that in my mind, you seem outgoing, you found these great networking groups, you put yourself out there.
It doesn't align with the homeschooler stereotype, does it?
Well, it doesn't align with the stereotype, but you also mentioned you negotiated the part-time work. So you're not from the outside, right? If I knew nothing about some of the other things you've mentioned on this conversation, from the outside, I'd say Anna is this very determined, outgoing, friendly extrovert. Yet you mentioned earlier having imposter syndrome and everything else.
Oh, 100%.
Is that nature or nurture in your mind?
I definitely run anxious. So I think there's that. I'm also just like, people ask me if I'm competitive. I'm competitive only if I think I can win. I will do ballsy things if I don't really think they're going to pay off. For example, if you listen to local NPR, you might know Steve Kraske. Like at a former like job, one of my colleagues like loved him, like biggest fan ever. And so without telling him, we invited him over to the office for lunch one day just to see if he would come. And he said yes. We scheduled it and we brought him over. We brought him like crock pot meatballs. And we told my then boss that it was like a fake shareholders meeting and got him all stressed out about it. And then he showed up and he was there. And all that to say, like, the worst people can say is no. It's a skill I'm actively practicing like now. Like, write them a proposal, like, let them say no. Like, charge a high fee. You can always take it like down. But again, if I was in like a stressed out, like, oh, it's a slow month or I had those things fall, I mean, anxiety ratchets up. My husband has to like tack me down. It's like pick me up off the floor. Like, it's not me and my best self. But me and my best self is a little bit of like a healthy, like, what's the worst that like can happen? I will say too, I worked at Starbucks for 5 years with my college job. So I had to practice peopling and networking and schmoozing and small talks. I'm also like really like going back to those like initial skills, which is kind of funny.
What did you do at Starbucks?
Barista, just like
I love
nothing
it.
exciting, just barista, just sitting there chit-chatting you to death as you waited for your coffee.
Yes, but those skills are so important. And like you said, you leverage them now. I think that's so cool. What did you get out of your Starbucks training and experience that you feel like is the most important?
Asking good questions, like learning how to ask people good questions to drive more meaningful like conversations. For example, if I just say, hi, how you doing? You're like, good, fine. It's like, what, like, and you have 1,000 of those interactions in a day and you get really bored. And then you start asking people really weird questions, like, what is the most interesting meal you've ever had? Or what's your dream vacation? Or what did you want to be when you were 5 or whatever? And you start to get these really interesting responses. So it taught me that like when I'm going to have a meeting with someone, an interview, to really kind of think about how the conversation is going to like play out and what is like a better like question or goal like can I bring to it. And I know that depending on what I bring to that, it's going to totally change the outcome of our conversation.
Oh my God, I love that so much. Those 3 questions you just gave as examples, by the way, like when you said, oh, how are you doing? But then you gave those 3 meaty questions and I immediately had images in my head with those specific answers. That's so cool.
It's the same with clients. Hey, what do you need done? I don't know. Well, what's the hardest part of your work week right now? What do you not know how to do like in this tool? Where are you spending hours that you don't want to be? Do you want me to do it all for you and take a drop? Or do you want me to just guide you through the process and teach you how? Totally different questions that will help me really understand what they want out of the experience, because most clients just know they don't need help, but they don't know what necessarily or specifically. And it's the same even with networking. I was talking to a friend of mine who was networking with other freelancers. She's like, how do you get like so much more out of these conversations? Like, well, the first thing I do is I like look them up. I look up their website. I figure out things that they do that I like, that I admire, that I want to learn from. And then by the time we chat, I have specific like, hey, I love how you do this part of your pricing model. What led you to this point? How has it worked? I love that you offer like this service. How do you find the leads for those service? And then I get very interesting insights because I've given them a specific thing they can offer me rather than just sort of like endless cycles of chit chat.
Yeah. How long does it take you to do that research?
Not long. I'll peruse their like website and LinkedIn for maybe like 30 minutes. And I almost always find something that like intrigues me, whether it's somebody we know in common or something I just think they do well. And now that I'm doing it like more and more, it's also just interesting to see a pattern. Like you were saying before the podcast about what you notice in different types of interviews. Like I've noticed a clear trend in people getting work from referrals. Not surprising. I noticed a clear trend like referral, but I should say referrals from close colleagues who do similar work, who could be seen as a competitor, but actually do complementary work. Like they only do strategy, but I do execution, even though we're in the same field. Referrals from past like actual coworkers, customers, people they've hired. So it's like, again, if you kind of just can get like one layer deeper, I feel like that's like where the juice is.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
You know that moment when you realize that you can't keep living the way that you've been living? You've probably heard several of my guests talk about that already. If that resonates with you and you're feeling like you're in that moment, you're in luck. I've created a 30-day program that's going to help you become unstuck, reconnect with your joy, reconnect with yourself, and reconnect with your values. We're going to work together to figure out your next step, your vision, and your path forward. This is an invitation for you to live the life of your dreams that truly lights you up. Visit 101waysout.com to get started.
When you decided you were ready to leave your corporate gig, going back to that, was there anything that you did to prepare for your exit?
I did make a very thorough offloading document for them because that just made me feel better. Like training videos, links to all the things. I was like, great, I will leave this like intact. For myself transitioning, I started having very nitty-gritty conversations like, do you have an LLC? Do you not? How do you do your taxes? Do you do it yourself? Do you pay someone? What time tracking tools do you use? Like all of that kind of stuff with folks. And then also I just started teeing up work like, hey, I am planning on quitting my job in a month. If you would like help with any of these things that you have mentioned, please let me know. And we will get that like on the books, and just started like letting people know that this was something I was like for sure doing. And then I started taking my existing online portfolio and turning it into more of like a actual website and sort of just turning it from a portfolio into a website. And then started asking people where they were going for networking, where they were meeting people, and just trying to really, I think just trying to figure out, I think knowing what to do first is hard because you like transition and it's like all the things. Like I could do 100 things. Do I start with like networking? Do I start with like bidding on Upwork? Do I start with like where do I start is so hard. I got lucky, and then I worked with some like lovely early clients who knew they needed help. They needed like ad hoc kind of marketing with a whole bunch of stuff. So they were my first sort of like mini retainer client, and they were wonderful and positive, and also just helped me get over my own like, what am I doing? They're like, you're great. I was like, thanks. So they were like a wonderful like transition client and kind of got me like over the hump and then like into more of like a groove. And then I started connecting with people who were just like a little bit ahead of the curve. Shout out to Shayla at Let's Make Waves, KC. She's put together this, what does she call it? Like a founder like mastermind. So I've been a part of her like cohort and course, and she's got it like figured out. If you're in Kansas City, go hang out with her. She got it figured out. She's like, let me share with you my pricing template. Let me share with you my like how to like onboard a new client. I was like, you have to onboard a new client? Like, she's like, oh yeah, you have to set expectations for what they are going to do versus what you're going to do. I was like, really? She's like, oh yeah. So I think just like connecting with people who are a year or two, like connecting with people in the exact same boat was helpful for me because we would just have nice spiral parties together and be like, this is terrible. And he sent me an email and I don't know what to do. And then connecting with people who are also further ahead and being like, I don't know if I'm charging enough. And they're being like, hey, you need to get off of project work and onto retainer work. And like those, like that kind of level of like people weighing in across the board has been so helpful.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I love that. So how long did it take you to make the leap after you decided you're going and you're trying to put all this in place?
Oh man, I think it was like 3 months where I was like putting like pieces together as well as doing some actual like work. And now I've like come to the reverse where I have enough billable work so much I'm no longer working on the business. And this is the challenge. It is why I think a lot of like freelancers and contractors fight so hard for retainer and large clients, because otherwise you're kind of constantly just like project managing, juggling, chasing. So again, to anybody who's thinking about doing the same, if you can find a way to turn it into a retainer or a big project where you only have to drum up like 5 a year, 6 a year. I mean, it's totally different. Like today, I did some billable work. I took some meetings. I quoted on an upcoming project. I quoted on another upcoming project. I looked at my calendar 10 times. Like the mental load of trying to do all of those things at the same time is insane. And I know it's insane. So that's like the current struggle is like how to scale and how to scale well. And let's all not forget it's summer. So my childcare is a joke. And like, it's like 1 month at this summer camp and 1 month. And it's like the mental load of it all is ridiculous, because when I first was like, how much do I need to make? I did the math well, but what I didn't calculate was like how much time you will just spend checking your emails, writing proposals, following up on a prospect, just mental task switching. So when I was like, oh, I only need to bill X number of billable hours a week, that was great. But I realized you are always going to work more than those billable hours that you need. So that was like my first like, oh shit moment. Like I will always be working more than whatever I'm actually billing. So that was sort of like a, and then in months like the summer where it's just like insane, I'm trying now just to focus on people who either have large enough projects or have their act together enough that we can go, hey, we're going to work on A, B, and C in 1 month, 2 months, instead of, hey, I need a thing fixed by end of day tomorrow. Because it's like those might write the check for you this week, but it's also going to like eat up your whole headspace. And then you're not working on this like other thing.
Yeah, that's really great information. The idea of building in your administrative time that's outside of your billable hours is so true. And I think I know myself, I never considered that. And you're saying that, it's like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. It's a very good point.
I had to remind myself to invoice the other day. I was like, oh yeah, I should get paid for the thing I did. Like, but it's like you get so, going. And especially as women, we're also thinking about the grocery list and what to cook for dinner and whether or not we filled out all the forms for the thing. So I'm also trying to realize that in an ideal world, I would map my lighter workload periods to heavier childcare, like lighter work in the summer, lighter work in December, when we just know things are going to be like bananas. That's a tiny bit like idealistic, but to what you said earlier, it's like, okay, am I not going into business to do it my own way? And versus just sort of like killing myself doing the maximum possible. Like, didn't I do this because I wanted a chiller life, not because I wanted to work every evening and weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Though that leads me to the other question I have, which is, what is your ultimate vision for what you want your life to look like?
My ultimate vision is I really only want to work about 20 hours a week. And I really want to have like enough. I want to have probably 6 months worth of work teed up at a time, so that like, yeah, I might be quoting something or prospecting, but in this very like kind of not frantic manner. And I want to just dial down the frantic things. And I want to really figure out where I want to specialize, because I'm still a little bit of a generalist and I'm still very much throwing like spaghetti at the wall and seeing what I like in terms of offering it as a service. Like, do I prefer to work with the client directly or do I prefer to work with the agency? I don't know. I'm still learning and figuring it out. I would like to have a stronger sense of where I want to like specialize, which even though you talk to a lot of people, some of it I think you just have to have like some lived experience around. And I want to have enough like confidence and flexibility, or I'm also just very good about being like, hey, that's not a good fit for me. Like this week, I'm on the fence about saying no to a partnership of just going, is this a genuine learning experience for me where it's forcing me to grow a skill here? Or is this like, you're just not a good partner for me and this is taking up too much headspace. So I think I'm slowly working on those skills, and I want to like lean into those skills more. And I would like to find more time for more of like the creative stuff that's not billable. That's just because I like doing it and building my own like business. I would love to get into public speaking. I would love to start a Substack. I would love to like be writing more. I would love to be mentoring more. But all of those things between like my limited childcare and like just kind of the hustle of figuring it out are like not a priority. So I would love to have more space for those things.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I was going to ask you about the creative work that you're thinking of, but is that the speaking and the writing side of it that you want to do more of? Or is it? Yeah.
I mean, there's probably other
Absolutely.
cool, juicy things too, but I would love to like have pro bono work that I just do for businesses because I love what they're doing. Like again, I can't really do it now, but I would love to have that be like an offer where I take a certain number of pro bono clients. I would love to put together like courses that I could sell for people like smaller businesses who need help and expertise, but just don't have like the budget to like throw at it. I've debated pivoting my business model where I do like more, once I feel like I've got it figured out, I would love to do like coaching. But if I were to do coaching now, I feel like it would be like, well, when you figure it out, let me know. So I don't think I can offer coaching yet, but like at some point I would love to do more of that kind of stuff.
That's great. It's like a very good plan that evolves over time. I have a
Yeah.
friend who is probably 20 years older than me, CEO, and his next evolution is winding down at some point in the next few years, winding down his CEO focus and just doing coaching because now
Yeah.
he wants to focus on helping other people live their
I
life
love
that
it.
they want. Yeah, it's fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah, so it changes, right? As we kind of explore as well. I think our goals often change. So let me ask you, how has your income changed from when you were working full time to what you're doing now? And what has that meant for you?
On a good month, I am making more than I did before, but I have had some very, very slow months. So another tip to anybody who's thinking about doing something like this, it really does incredibly help if you have one or two retainer clients, or if you have a way to diversify your income, be it through another part-time side job, be it through just something really super consistent. Like on a great month, I make more than I did before. But I've had like 3 months where I barely build like anything. So there's definitely like fluctuations with like, or you get like 5 things, but they're all at the same time. So it's like all things I would love to do and I'm qualified to do, but they're all at the same time and they all want them done at the same time. So then you're either trying to talk the person into like extending the deadline or rethinking it, or you just have to pass on the work. So that's also like its own kind of challenge. So in talking to other people about it, like some of the marketers I admire have figured out a way to make it a subscription, like a paid Substack, or have figured out a way to templatize it. Like you're going to buy their email template, you're going to buy their ebook, you're going to buy their course, stuff like that. So that's where I would like to get a little bit like more diverse. So for me, it's sort of like the savings go like this, and then they go back up like this, and then they go like down, and then they go back up, and then they go like down, and they go back up. So like, honestly, I don't even like, my husband helps with my finances, thank goodness, but I don't even know what I've like netted this year. I'm also still getting like the hang of like quarterly taxes and whatever. But I think the difference for me, and I kind of expected that from the first year, but I think the difference for me is now I don't see a cap on it versus before going, I don't see an individual contributor making 6 figures that often outside of really nice, like companies or whatever, or like really specialized. Like, so before I saw a very clear cap of like, okay, even if I do the same thing for the next 5 years, I'm probably only going to be making this many dollars, versus now going, okay, if I figure out a way to get like smarter and better, I can make more money. I also heard a very good piece of advice. I'm forgetting his name, but he does like coaching for B2B consultants. And he said something to the effect of, you are either a specialist and people come to you because of their specialty, or you are a commodity competing on pricing. And like, again, if you are general, I just do marketing, why are you better than anybody else who does marketing? Then the client's just going to go with the lowest like bidding person, versus like you are the go-to person for whatever. And that go-to could be like the thing, the industry, the problem, the tool, but you have to be the thing. So rambling way of saying it definitely goes like up and down, but I'm having more good months than bad months where I'm like, okay, that's more than I made at my old job. And I can see a future where there's like no cap on it the way it was before.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I'm so happy to hear that too, by the way, that things are going in a very positive direction.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Fantastic.
It's like, oh, yay.
Yeah, it's working.
It's working. Yeah, I'm not just pretending to have a job. Ah. And all it takes is like a couple people throwing you the right. I've had one excellent referring partner who I think has sent me 5 leads and had 3 close. Like all it takes is like a few people. So I feel like that early momentum is like so hard won.
Yeah.
But then when the tide like starts to turn, I feel like it can really just turn.
That's wonderful. You mentioned also something I'm really curious about. I don't want to take away from this story, but I think it's so interesting that you mentioned going from project-based work into retainer work. Was that a weird shift to make?
Well, I'm still doing both, to be honest. I have one client who put me on sort of an indefinite retainer, and I was like, this is interesting. And to your question about pricing, I decided it was worth taking a pay cut to do it because it was work I didn't have to continually win over and over. So, like, the math is weird. Like, when you're sitting down and like a lot of people are very anti-hourly, a lot of people love it. Like, there's all these sort of weird like dividers. For me, it's sort of like, what is just easy? It's easy to win. It's easy to scope. It's easy to like just get it going. Like, they're just chill people. So for that one, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a 25% pay cut on this, but I'm going to win it once. And then as long as they don't think I suck at it, like, it's done until either one of us wants to be out, versus a higher quoted like project that I have to win like every 20 hours or so. It's like a totally different situation. So for them, I decided, I was like, okay, you guys want like a 2-day a week retainer. You want it like, yes, I will take a 25% like pay cut for that. They also work overseas. So I'm starting my workday with them at 6 a.m., which is a stretch. Yeah, it's a stretch for me, but it would be the only way I had overlap with the London team. So I was like, okay, I'm also willing to sacrifice some like personal like comfort for the sake of this stability. Like, okay. And then for the other ones, I'm just trying to find repeat projects with people I like. Hey, like, this is an agency. I really like them. They pay on time. They scope well. They're nice. They're not jerks. Like, yes, like, I will totally just like find a little something they want help with and like get it in the queue for them. The ones I'm really like saying no to are very ill scoped, like, no way to really succeed. We don't know what we want. So we're going to have to talk about it like 20 times. Like, those are the ones that it's just like, you just make you want to jump off a bridge, because it's like they either want hours and hours and hours of like free consulting, or they're just really not ready to buy and they're kind of just researching. I'd even talk to like more designery people and they're like, oh yeah, like, people will ask for, hours and hours and hours of work on a proposal to say no or do it themselves. So like,
Yeah.
those smart people, I think, give a certain amount of like, yeah, we'll do a half an hour free consult and I'll show you examples or whatever. But then they even pay for like a really customized plan. Like, hey, you want a really customized proposal? Like, great, but that's going to cost you $300. And it's not really about the $300. It's about getting some skin in the game. Like, it's really about just getting them to put some skin in the game. Yeah, you're like, cool. I skipped a family dinner and my whole weekend to do that thing. Or my favorite, yes, but not now. Yes, but not right now. Yes, but not this quarter. Yeah. And it's like, dude, I get it. But also, like, so you can just spend your whole time chasing those little things. I remember at my first startup, they said raising 1 million was as difficult as raising 4. And that if they could have gone back, like, they would have just gone for the bigger earlier. And I think that I would give that like same advice. Like, find something that is like compelling enough and have enough like market demand that you can just go bigger. Or it's just like, just very straight up, like, people want help with HubSpot. I don't have to sell them on that. They just want to approve my hourly rate. We're done. But it's not this like me convincing them they need it thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Awesome advice. Okay. I wanted to ask you about something you mentioned earlier. You mentioned being really clear, your mom telling you, and you becoming very clear on your intentions and your values. Share a little bit more about how you see that coming to life for you and what your values are.
Right now, it's all about motherhood and being there for the kids. And I should mention too, part of the driving force of all this was we went through some medical crisis with my youngest. And that was also like a contributing factor. Long story short, he's doing great and all good now. But we had 2 really scary years where he was born. We went through everything from the NICU to a deaf diagnosis, to a diagnosis about potential neurological issues, to genetic counseling. I mean, just like everything. And he is really fantastic now. But it was like, I look back and I go, I honestly don't know how I did that, because in addition to working at a startup that was starting to like get very toxic, I was also like navigating a bazillion early intervention appointments. At one point, he had 10 doctors, like all of that. So for me, the value now, I think, is just kind of decompressing, like going like, okay, how do I get out of a state of constant anxiety and like just surviving and just go, like powering through everything into being like a parent that is present and a parent that is like doing meaningful work? And how do I keep like learning and growing and also not just be like a cog in a wheel? Because the thing about working for one company and one job is, even if you like love it, you just are kind of doing a lot of one thing. Like, it's like one, but like, because I work with a lot of companies and a lot of different, I'm like ooh, I didn't know how to do that. Ooh, I didn't like, ooh, I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to learn about like, I'm learning all the time. So that has been really, really meaningful. So now for me, the goal is just to get good enough at it where I can start to get some more time and some control back so that I can start doing the other things I care about. So I can spend more time with people, volunteer more, like all of that other stuff. Because I think the thing about going freelance too is it's sort of like you make it worse before you make it better. Like you sort of like, ideally we all make this switch to make our lives better and have chill schedules and blah, blah. And then we're like, oh, this is gonna be really hard for a while. So I feel like I've like through I made it worse, but now I would like to actually make it better and to like enjoy more of like the time stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you feel like that's on the horizon? Do you feel like you're getting there?
I think so. My friend Maggie, who runs the Kansas City Foundership, did such a great email on her Substack. And I just responded to it. I was like, this resonates so hard, it hurts. And it was basically about the problem when high achievers start to work from themselves. And it was like, because she's ex-agency, so she's totally in this bracket, but she was like, we do it because we want more flexibility and fewer hours. And then we just become the demanding client. Like we get rid of the demanding client or the demanding boss. And then we just become that to ourselves. And we're still working like nights and weekends because we just want to like prove that we can do it, prove it wasn't a mistake, see how much money we can make, whatever. Like none of it bad. But I was like, oh, this is so true. Or we just don't know how to do it in a smart way, meaning move to a retainer, move to bigger projects, not race to the bottom. But I really, really resonated with that. So I was like, oh, Maggie, teach me how. So I just want to keep learning. I want to keep learning from strong women who haven't figured out.
Well, I love that. It seems like you, just based on everything I've heard you say, you're an eager learner. That is definitely, that comes across.
I do love to learn. It's just fun. And it's fun, I think, too, since my kids are so little, it's like, oh, well, if it's not Bluey, I'm there. Like using my brain cells, like great. If it's not like me doing the third load of laundry for the day, like fantastic. I'm in that phase where work is a vacation compared to parenting. So that's like, yeah, I'm going to go work. Bye.
Yes, I can fully understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Maybe when they're in school, I'll feel differently. But like right now, it's like, oh, this is stimulated my brain. It's great.
Yeah. After this weekend, I was like, oh, yeah, it's Monday. I can do things at my computer and just focus. It's so lovely. So I totally get what you're saying.
Oh, and about values, it's also just been so nice to come up out of the like nose to the grindstone and connect with people again. Like when I started networking really hard, I was like, even if these people do not send me leads, like it has been so nice to like have lunches with people, get to know them, like learn, grow just from like all of that. So I didn't do any of that in the previous few years because it was either COVID or it was just like working my butt off to like try to get everything done in my limited work week or whatever, and still like working overtime. So it's like it has been so nice to just connect with people again. Like that's been so meaningful.
Almost like we're social creatures that should have community, right?
I know. And like we all, because we're self-employed, we're the ones with the most flexibility. Poor regular people are like, well, I have like 40 minutes on a lunch break, and us self-employed people are like, yeah, let's go have like a quarterly brainstorm about our business for 3 hours on a Tuesday with wine. Why not? Of course we'll do that.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. I actually did that with some friends. I would recommend that to other folks too. In addition to not just like having coffee with people, like find some folks you trust and do like a 2 or 3 hour like sit down where you're like, I want to figure this thing out. Like let's talk it out, let's figure it out, and then like return the favor for them. And that's also been like extremely helpful.
That's great.
And as like a bonus, you make friends with like bookkeepers and designers and people who can help you when you're like in a pinch.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's the power of community. It's such a different way of looking at the world than I think being just kind of in your narrow purview. So that's different.
Or having to have it all come from like your kid's school or your kids, because as parents, most of our social stuff is dictated by like whatever school, daycare, it's all there. It's like, oh, I can actually choose some of my own people.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. Do most of your contacts come from the Foundry, or how did you find the people that you are talking to now?
Did I find them? The Foundership is a big one, but we also have the... You're close. I think there's a fun bar around here called the Foundry, so we could have the Foundership at the Foundry. I met most of them there. They're amazing. But I think I also met some through the Kansas City Freelance Exchange, which is another fantastic... Like we are really lucky. We have a great like local populace of folks. So I met some of them there. And then I think I even met a couple people by joining like a virtual session on like Alignable. It's kind of like LinkedIn for small businesses, and meeting some people like virtually there. But if you are lucky enough to live in an area like Kansas City that has like a huge local like population, and again, when you find one, ask them where else they're going. Like I just started asking people what paid or free groups they're part of. I even have a spreadsheet of like favorite networking resources, and people are really like eager to share like what works for them. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's right. You do have that spreadsheet.
I do.
That's right. Yes.
I do.
Okay, you mentioned this earlier. If you had to choose between happiness or success at this point in your life, what would you choose? And has it changed over the course of your life?
For happiness, for sure. Like, no question. Again, I feel like that's a very privileged statement. If we were like living paycheck to paycheck, I would have to choose success. But happiness for sure. And I think the journey has been just not associating worth with like a fancy job title. Like I was talking to a fancy CMO lady, like somebody who intimidates me. And I'm like, oh, they're only a few years older than me and they have it so much more figured out. And they probably make so much more money than it, all of that. Like, should I be there by now? But I was talking to her and she was like, I have thought about doing what you're doing so many times. I have thought about just trying to find a way to like work less, like so many times. And I was like, oh yeah, like we all have our thing. Like there's no like you get there and then you're okay. There's no I do this and then I'm okay. Like I'm still scared all the time. I still spiral. I still have anxiety about it all the time. And I don't even know that I'll do it for forever. But even if I didn't, I wouldn't regret doing it like now. But for sure, like happiness and meaning and going, am I going to regret doing this more or not doing this more? And that's always been like a guiding question too. It's like, am I going to regret trying this more and failing or like not trying more? And for me, it's like, okay, I would much rather say, why didn't I ever give that a try?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's a fantastic answer. And I love the comparison with the CMO too, because I think we all have those people that we look to and think, oh, they have it figured out. Gosh, how did they get there? Could I ever be like that? And then you talk to them and you have the experience you had. Everybody wants something slightly different. I think it's hard to figure out what that right internal voice is sometimes.
Well, especially for women. I mean, let's be real. Research shows we're so screwed, like so screwed in so many ways. Like, and that's just the white women. The women of color are even more screwed. But like, I mean, research shows we were the one picking up the pieces during COVID. Research shows, regardless of whether or not you work full-time, part-time, none outside the home, you are still doing more of the social work. You're still doing more of the domestic work. Like, so there's just like also like all of that. So like, just like, let's not even play. Like, of course, we're never going to feel like we're doing it all because we're all like being asked to do an insane amount of stuff. So like, there's also just like that piece that I've tried to be like more honest about too, going like kind of normalizing like, oh, I guess it's normal to feel like a failure, or it's normal to like make mistakes, or it's normal to like not know. And I think too, I just try to like lead with honesty. And if, it's a client or a partner, I'll be like, hey, I have never done that before, but I will go ahead and try to figure it out. And if it takes me longer than I think it should, I won't bill you for it. And they're like, cool. They're not like, how dare you? How dare you not know it? Like, what's wrong with you? You like scum of the earth. They're like, great. Thanks for trying to figure that out for me. So like just like, trying to like reframe that like honesty, but that just helps me feel like I don't have to come in all matcha cheese mo. Like, that's just not my vibe, man. Like, it's just not.
Right? Well, I'm sure they're like, oh, good, she's honest. And she can figure out shit that I'm not going to figure out. And she can do it for me. And thank goodness I have her.
Yeah, but it's also why I'm not like going to be like, I'm the one for you and I'm going to be great. It's like, I don't want to do that but I also want to like set that bar so high. It's nice to work with people who treat you like a human. It's nice.
Yeah. And realize we make mistakes. That's so incredible.
Yeah. And now I'm like extra motivated to do a good job for them and redeem myself. And, it's like, and it works out.
Yeah, absolutely. What crashed the website?
It was this really silly technical thing of like, I thought I was asking them to confirm settings, and instead the prompt I sent them to had them rewrite the DNS settings. Like it was one of those very like nitty gritty. I thought we were confirming. Instead it had them rewrite them, like a very silly technical issue. So that's of course when it's like handy to be married to a software engineer. And I literally was like, stop what you're doing, turn on a show. The children are going to watch TV and you're going to come in my office and we're going to figure this out for my client. He's like, okay. God bless him. He did for like an hour. hour, and we got to like sort it for them. But it was also like a good lane of like reminder of like, don't feel like you have to be all things to all people. I don't know how to do technical back end, so I need to stop even trying to help do that because it's not my thing. So like, even though my motivations were pure, like, don't even try to do that, because if you don't know what you're doing, it's not helpful to anybody. So, I would rather be good at a few things than half-assed 20. So
Yeah, I love it. It's good. It's a growth opportunity. All of these things.
Oof, that my like heart rate though, that was oof. That's probably like the low point since freelancing. Don't crash somebody's website. It's terrible.
It happens.
It does happen. Luckily, they've been around the block to know enough that it does happen. But oof, and marry an software engineer if you can. It's just handy.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's good to have people that have those skill sets. Oh my God, I have had so many. I've worked at large companies where things have crashed. I've been responsible for things like that. I've had team members responsible for things like that. You are not at all alone. And some of these are Fortune 500 companies that you're like, you should have your shit together, and yet no.
I
so
know.
It happens all over the place.
And I just admire people who are human about it, who are, and I think that's kind of the thing that I've learned from working at startups. It's like, if anybody is stressed out enough, they will not be a kind person. And they could even start off being a kind person. But if the environment gets toxic enough, if the finances get bad enough, if the layoffs start, like all of us turn into really just and at that point, my advice to anybody is to get out whatever your job next thing, because it's just very hard. And I read something somewhere that resonated with me. It said one of the lesser known symptoms of burnout is imposter syndrome, because you're basically conditioned to believe that you are constantly getting it wrong, not doing enough. And I was like, oof, like this feels so true to me. And I think for a lot of us in corporate and startup, like, we are being people's scapegoats. It's not really a reflection of us or our worth. It is like we have become the scapegoat. We're there to make them look good, whatever. Like, the interesting thing about contracting is I can do the same different job and the same different skill set and be perceived in wildly different ways by 3 different clients. And that's not a reflection of me. And that sort of like light bulb was like, oh, it's about them, not about you. And like, I wish I had realized that a little bit sooner.
It's a great realization. I bet you wish you had known that when you were in your corporate experience too, in some ways.
Yeah.
Or startup.
I did. I mean, honestly, I did. But I still can't like kind of compartmentalize that. And like, I just am not good. Like, I saw colleagues doing a much better job of like compartmentalizing and kind of going, it's their problem, not mine. But that's so not me, that I was like, okay, then I need to change the environment. Like, I can't kind of sit around waiting for the culture to change. I need to change the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the most liberating decision that you've made since you left your startup jobs that you never would have made otherwise?
Saying no. Because like, again, when you are a salaried employee, you really can't say no that much, or not big no. You can say little no's, but not like, I'm going to get off Slack for 2 hours. I'm going to take a PTO day. I'm going to like ask for contractor support for 5 minutes a week. Like, you can say little no's if you're lucky, but like, you don't get to say like a big no. Versus now, where I go, this person is really stressing me out. Like, I just don't know if I want to keep working with them. And, it was also the advice to have that written into my like agreement, where I can cut a client or a partner with a certain amount of like days notice, because it is a weird power shift. Like, yes, they're paying you and you likely need that money, but you go from a job where your option for the money is the one thing, like, this is my employer, this is my source of income, that, to hopefully a few different like sources of income. And you go, well, I can say no over here, and then I can ask for more hours from them, or a referral, or another project over here. So for me, it has just been about the ability to say no and have more control and go, and really even just dictate terms. I had somebody be like, I need you to get on a meeting now, and be like, nope, I'm out of pocket for the next 2 days. If you're still working on it Monday, I'll be there. And like, again, my contract is very explicit. It's like, I will get back to you within a business day. If you don't give me at least like a day's notice, I will still bill you for my Zoom time, like things like that, because you do get to set like the rules. Like, and somebody, Shayla from Let's Make Waves, framed it really well. She said, people don't really want a yes man, they want a partner. And to be a good partner, you also have to know your worth, have boundaries, and set expectations of like, hey, this is how this agreement will work, rather than just showing up, saying, I'll do whatever you want. And I lean very much toward the like, I'll do whatever you want. And I am learning much more how to be like a good partner, or to even tell like a client, like, hey, that thing you want doesn't make sense and it's not going to give you what you hope it will. Why don't we try this instead? And you can say it very nicely, very graciously, but there's so much more room for that than in like a corporate job where you just are expected to say yes and keep your head down and be that cog in a wheel.
Do you feel like the way that your expertise is perceived has changed since you've become
100%. 100%. People think you're as my sister, who I forgot to mention is also a long time, she and her husband are also self-employed. So I guess it really does run in the family. She says that when you're the contractor, you get to be the hero. And I think this is so true. When you are the employee, especially if you are like a little self-deprecating or a woman, or like just now great at tooting your own horn, there is very much the like, oh, well, they're just such and such. And to be fair, I am bad about like, oh, well, I'm not really an expert and blah, blah. And I have had to get better at that. But you just like, you're just kind of taken for granted. The same way we all are in like a long-term relationship or whatever. Like you just kind of get taken for granted. But when it's like, oh, you're this like person and you're charging whatever amount of money and you have a wait list of like 2 months, there's a totally different like perception there, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, it's like you're the same person, you're offering the same skills, you're the same expertise, but suddenly you're coming in from the outside and now all of a sudden you're just extra special.
Well, it's funny. Like people will like, oh, Anna's an expert in such and such. It's like, I never said that, but if you want to call me that, sure. Like you can call me an expert in such and such.
Do you feel like the way you positioned yourself has changed much over the last couple of months? Just a couple of months as you become more specialized and learned how to sell?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about like pivoting from like small businesses to medium-sized businesses, but now really leaning into more of the like, again, Shayla has talked about people don't want a laundry list of tactics. They want to know what transformation you can drive for the business. So I have tried to reframe like I do email and copy editing and lead gen to like I help businesses like find like new ways for their sales and marketing teams to drive like revenue. Like I help the sales team like optimize and automate what they're overdoing. Like we're just totally reframing the thing to what the thing achieves, which I, of all people, should know as like a marketer, that is much more compelling. But that's another piece of advice. Like don't just tell people like what you do, tell them signs that they need you. I was talking to somebody in operations and I was like, okay, well, nobody knows what operations means unless they've already hired operations. So like, what are some signs that like people need you? Oh, it's because things are breaking, nothing's documented, they're scaling to, like thinking about reframing it that way. So like, okay, I don't just do like marketing. I help their sales team work efficiently and scale without hiring more people. I help them stop spending hours on tedious tasks. I help them like stand out and connect with their audience, just like leading with more of those things. And just also like showing people real examples, because marketing in particular like lends itself to just jargon and you kind of are just like buzzwords. It's like they just sort of zone out. Like I don't even send people to my homepage anymore. I just send them to my case studies page. Like, hey, it was great to meet you.
Yeah.
You wanted to know what I do. Here's my case study. Because then they can see for themselves what I do. They can kind of pick the use case that like resonates with them versus just sort of like hyperbole of like, I do marketing stuff. It's great.
I think that's awesome.
I think the other thing I want to say is if you are someone who is thinking about going out on your own, the piece of advice I would give you is don't do it all in one go. Like if you can, take on hustle side work as you can, nights and weekends. Yes, it's a total grind, but it will like help you validate whether or not this is something you want to do and help you actually have like people who want your work when you're ready to go after it like full time. B, like if it's something you're seriously thinking about doing, try to make friends with a lot of people, even people you've hired who are doing it. They will give you the best advice. And C, just plan on a slow first year, like financially. And if you are pleasantly surprised, fantastic. But don't like set yourself up for failure thinking that you have to make a certain amount of money in like the first like 3 months.
That's awesome advice.
And ask people for referrals. Like again, this seems like really common sense, but like ask everyone from current clients, former coworkers, friend, like just ask them. One of the smartest marketers I know, after she wraps with a client, she sends them like a Google form and it's like, how do you feel like this project went? anything I can improve next time? Do you have any more work coming up? Would you be willing to give me a review? Would you be willing to give me like an intro? Can you start that intro now? Like really like capitalizing on the process.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I was like, this is so smart. I mean, it is all the common sense things, but like automated. So find like some good systems for that. And then really work on pricing for value and for transformation and for benchmarking, like with other people, like really do your homework on how to price yourself, because it is really, really, really easy to price hourly, which is very hard to scope. And you spend a lot of time scoping or going over scope and then figuring that out, or just to undersell yourself. And I think having like some set packages that you can start with really helps manage that expectations, manage the pricing model, and help people like figure out like how to best use you and how do you sort of set the path versus them just throwing the kitchen sink at you.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. It's like getting on the right foot from the beginning instead of just trying to figure it out and trying to customize something for every single client, which I am guilty of for sure.
I mean, I've literally had every person I talk to say, well, we were customizing it for every client and it either took way too long or it always went over. At the very minimum, do a high end, low end. This is something Julie Cortez, local freelance coach, taught me to do. You kind of figure out your base number of hours and then factor in like a low end and a high end and say, this is going to come in somewhere between these two. And, then there's not sticker shock and work on an amount of buffer in there. So even for small projects, I always have 2 to like 6 hours worth of buffer in there, because there's going to be like an extra meeting, an extra ask, an extra email. There's going to be some, or just like something that broke or took too long or whatever. So just like setting like some simple like guardrails from that. Also like read other people's contracts. I was lucky enough to have like 5 friends share their contracts with me. I was like, oh, this clause is genius. Like one of them was like, if I don't hear back from you, I will finish like within 2 weeks. I will finish the project my way. I will close it out and we will like move on, or you will pay me like $500 to restart the project. And again, it also just really like confirms that like, hey, even though you are paying, this person is not at your beck and call. As a client, need to understand that like you have a role in the partnership too, and they're not going to be indefinitely available. Like this proposal has an expiration date. Like I'm going to go and take other projects. Unless you put me on retainer, I am not infinitely available. So then people are like shocked if I tell them I don't have capacity for like a month. I'm like, you don't have me on retainer. Why do you think I'm going to be magically available?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so genius. I love it. Thank you so much for those additional items. I mean, just feel like you just opened up so many things that as I put this in here, people that are wanting to get into what you're doing now, it's going to be so helpful for them. So thank you.
That's fun. It's a fun period of self-reflection and a little validating, like, oh, maybe I learned something this year.
Yeah, you definitely have. Are you kidding me? This is amazing. I just want to also say, like, I know there are a couple of things that you've mentioned on as far as like being a woman, and it's like just in general life is harder. And I 100% agree with you. So I don't know. I don't think I have a specific question, but I just wanted to like also reflect back. Yes. And society wasn't built for us, and I wish it was, but I don't know. Everything you said, I'm like, yep.
For people looking for a really fun read and also a very helpful read, there's a great one called The Plan by Kendra Adachi. And it's sort of like a how to get organized without it being like a cliche 10-step process, like figuring out what matters to you, paying attention, blah, blah, blah. But she says something I love in it. She's like, so just remember as you read all these other planning books that literally like 95% are written by rich white men. So when it's that whole hustle culture, get up at 4 a.m., go to the gym. And, like, again, she said it, and like, that's so obvious, but like, we are so like conditioned to like, why aren't I waking up at 5 a.m. and hitting the gym and training for the 5K and meal planning my whole week and out, like I read those and I'm like, they did all this by 7. This sounds like a week's worth of like outputs to be getting done by 7, whatever. And I really appreciate Ashlyn Carter. She's a wonderful marketer who has stuff figured out. And she does a great series of YouTube videos where she is very honest about how she plans her week as the founder, how many hours she actually spends working a day. And she said something to the effect of like, at this point, I only plan to get about 4 hours of solid work in a day. And I only expect to get that done 4 days a week. And she's like made over $1 million. And I found it very like, okay, we might just need to do like a real table setting, like reset. Like my most productive time is like at night, like 8 to 10, few hours like during the day. But like, just know you are going to get constantly interrupted. And if you have to set really strict meeting hours to get it like done, like use your Calendly, let only people book meetings between like 10 and 2, whatever, because yeah, we are always just caring so much more than we think we are. And if we could like be honest about how much it actually like is, we could be real more realistic about like what we can actually get done.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. I'm going to definitely look up the book and the YouTube that you mentioned. So that would be fantastic.
I'll send you the links. I'll send you links to those and the foundership and the Let's Make Waves.
Thank you. Okay, if people want to find you, how can they find you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Anna Duin, ANNADUIN.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I want to give you a quick update that Anna has shared with me about how things are going for her business. First of all, they are going fantastically well. She has learned to niche down. A process she's still working on a little bit is to try to stop doing all the things, but she's gotten a lot better about it. And importantly, what she shared is that in the not too distant past, she has found a really fantastic referral partner, someone that does things that are complementary but slightly different to what she does, who is sending a tremendous amount of work her way. So now she's getting to be a little bit more choosy about the projects that she takes on, which I think is so fantastic. And so that goes into what she talked about earlier around making sure that you are really clear about what you can offer, that you can get those referrals coming in, and that you can find people that will send that your way. So she's done it. It's going well for her. And let's keep following along and see what she does. And I'll bring updates your way as I learn more. But I cannot wait to see you back here next week. And until then, go rewrite the rules.